You know, and the little thing I put on Facebook, you know, to encourage people out to the service, but we got to stop sweeping stuff under the rug. Because we have a tendency to do that. Old people do that. I don't want to deal with this, under the rug. Well, sooner or later, you're going to lift that rug and the one thing's going to come out and bite you. Church, today we're going to focus on the need for us to have the faith to face it. Huh? Denial is something that, when I was in college, that was a long time ago. I don't know if they still use the terminology, but I was a social sciences major. My father used to say, so what are you going to do, open a sociology store? He was a little more practical than I was in those days. But in one of the psychology courses that I had to take, they taught us about defense mechanisms. And the number one defense mechanism was denial. You see, it's sometimes easier to just deny the existence of a problem or a situation or a condition than to deal with it. Huh? Mm-hmm. You know, it's like a youngster being threatened by a bully. Not everybody wants to stand up to the bully. Mm-hmm. But you can avoid the bully for just so long. Mm-hmm. And sooner or later, the day of reckoning is coming. I found this out in my real life. You know, you can avoid them. Mm-hmm. But sooner or later, they're going to pop up out of nowhere where you least expect it. Like when you're coming home from school. Now what? Huh? Well, you either give in and let them abuse you and maybe injure you or harm you, or you reach deep down inside and you muster up the courage to confront them and resist. A good punch will usually send the bully crying and running home to mama. That's how it is. James 4:7 says, resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. It doesn't say think bad about him. It says resist him.
That's right.
1 Peter 5:8-9 says, be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Now listen, resist him.
Yes, amen.
Stand firm in the faith.
Yes, yes. In the faith, amen.
Resist. And it means to stand against or to oppose. Now, oppose is to exert force against. Listen, there's something that the social scientists, a phrase they've coined, and it's actually a good one. And they call it the fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. Now, they concocted this because of something that they had seen repeatedly, again and again and again, in humans, in humanity. Wikipedia describes or defines the fight or flight response as, it says, the acute stress response is a physiological reaction that occurs in response, listen, to a perceived harmful event, circumstance, attack, or threat to survival. So, fight or flight, simply put, is punch the bully in the nose or cut and run.
That's right.
That's the bottom line. The devil is a bully. He employs tactics to try to bring us down, to undermine our faith, to steal, kill, and to destroy. Now, running is a fear response. It's a response to an I can't do this mentality. That's what it is. It's denial. Running is denial in its purest form. Listen, many times, no, most times, it's true, we can't do it. But we need the faith to know that God can do it.
Amen.
Church, we don't want to have faith in us. We don't want to have faith in our ability, our strength, our wisdom, our intellect. We need faith in God.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
In Mark's gospel, it says, have faith in God.
Yes. Yes.
And when you have faith in God, you can say to this mountain,
That's right.
when you have faith in God,
Yes.
you can say to that mountain, be thou removed and cast into the sea. And after you say it, just wait to hear the splash.
Yes. Amen.
You didn't move the mountain. God moved the mountain.
You got to say it.
But you have to first have faith
Yes.
in two things. That he can, and number two, that he will.
Amen.
And we need to expect it to come to pass. When we release our faith,
Yes.
we need to send our faith.
Yes.
You know, we have a choice.
Yep.
We have a choice. You either let the stuff speak to you, or you start speaking to the stuff.
That's right. Amen.
We're talking about denial today. We can't be sweeping stuff under the rug. It's time that we confront the issues of life.
Amen.
But we need to know that we can't do it in our own strength.
That's right.
We can't do it in our own power.
No.
We have to know that God can and will.
Hallelujah.
Listen to me. Denial is not a place where enemies are ever defeated. Did you hear that? It's not a place where enemies are ever defeated or problems are ever overcome. Say this with me. Say, I'm coming out
I'm coming out
of denial.
of denial.
Praise God.
Amen.
You know, when preparing this message,
Lord.
I had pages and pages of notes. So in spite of all these notes, the Lord kept pointing to Elijah. Look to Elijah. There's something in this story about Elijah. So, okay. So in considering Elijah, I found that there were two very different responses to two very different threats. One of them involved receiving God's encouragements along the way. And they keep us going.
Amen.
And they get us to our destiny.
Yes, we do.
And the other didn't. Now, in 1 Kings 17, this guy, Elijah, just pops up out of nowhere. Elijah the Tishbite. That's quite a handle. And God starts out with this guy, Elijah the Tishbite, by sending him to King Ahab to threaten him. Now, Ahab was not the kind of guy you wanted to threaten, and his wife was an animal. Jezebel, famed for slaying the prophets. So I guess God figured, let's see what this Elijah's made out of. Go to Ahab's house and threaten him. But friends, besides this message of a drought that Elijah brought to Ahab, the Lord had much more for Elijah to accomplish. But in order to do it, Elijah would have to faithfully follow instruction. If he were even to survive the drought himself. See, that's what the threat was. There's a drought coming. It's not going to rain for years. Can you imagine? Listen, Elijah was going to have to walk this out by faith. Because he was going to be in the same world that everybody else was in, with no water. Now, you know, interesting things happen. Not good things with droughts, severe droughts. Everything dies. Food can't grow, so people starve. Animals starve and die. Not only do they not have the water to drink, but they don't have the food to eat. Things die. But God, in his grace and in his mercy, had a plan for Elijah. And he also planned spiritual encouragements along the way to get him there. Listen, I'm sharing this with you today because some of you may be going through hard times. Some of you have been through hard times. Some of you have been struggling with issues for a long time. And when that happens, we get beat up, we get worn down, we get tired. Especially if you don't have something to encourage you to take the next step.
Amen. Yes. Amen.
That's when you reach a point where you say, forget about it. You throw in the towel, you quit. God doesn't want you to quit.
Amen.
The word says you have a good expected end.
Yes. Amen.
So where do you have to get? To the end.
Yes.
Huh?
That's right.
And along the way, he'll plant these encouragements if only we can see through the pain. It's like, what do they say? You can't see the forest through the trees. God put the trees there to encourage you. You'll make it through the forest.
Amen.
Church, we need to start seeing the blessings of God even in the midst of the hurt and the confusion and the turmoil of life. In verses 3 through 6 of 1 Kings 17, in the midst of this drought, God sends Elijah to the brook of Cherith and tells him that ravens will provide for him there. Now, that might not seem outrageous to you. It's pretty crazy to me. Especially when you consider that a raven will eat the meat before it ever gets to you. A raven is a carnivore. A raven is a predator. So the chances of a raven delivering you food in the natural are nil. But God tells him, go to this brook. What does a brook contain? Water. And that ravens will provide for you there. Verse 6, and the ravens brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. Listen, while the whole world was perishing around him, here's Elijah, fat and happy, along the side of the brook, eating meat of some kind and bread. Life was good. When you follow the instructions of the Lord and you see, listen, he saw the promise of God come to pass. That's encouragement.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
That's encouragement.
Amen.
Well, the brook soon dries up. And God has yet another plan for Elijah. And he tells Elijah to go to Zarephath. And that there's a little old widow woman there who's going to take care of him. In verse 10, it says, as he came through the gate of the city, sure enough, there she was. And what was she doing? She was gathering up sticks to make a little fire, I guess, to bake the little tiny bit of meal that she had left, to make a cake for her son and her, and then she would die because there was nothing else to eat. Elijah tells her, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, bake the cake. But I get the first piece. She says, no, you don't understand. There's only enough for my son and I to have a meal, and that's it. Then we're going to die. He tells her, go bake the cake. She bakes the cake. Not only did he get a piece of that cake, but so did she, so did her son. Listen, and the meal that she had, the jar of meal, and the jar of oil that she had, never ran out.
Hallelujah.
It never ran out. She never came to an end of her resources. You know why? Because there was no end to her resources. God was in on this. Now listen, think about what I'm saying. In the midst of a total and complete drought where the world was withering and dying, people, animals, vegetation, everything lying dead, God sends him to a brook to be fed by ravens, and sure enough, the ravens show up with dinner. Then sends him to a little town, and that there'll be a widow woman there to feed him, and sure enough, he walks through the gates, and there she is.
That's right.
You see, friends, the blessings are always there to keep you going if only you'll open your eyes to see them.
Amen. Thank you, Lord.
God encouraged him to prevent denial. Nowhere in these scriptures, 1 Kings 17 or 18, do we see anywhere that Elijah was all bummed out over the instructions that God gave him and the journey that God put him on. The prophet Elijah, he observed the signs that God gave him. Listen, we've got to learn from this. God will never hang you out to dry.
Thank you, Lord.
There's always a plan.
Thank you, Lord.
You might need to look beyond the circumstance,
Yes.
but there's always a plan.
Thank you, Lord.
That's if you're walking his way and not yours.
That's right.
This man of God was strengthened in faith, and as a result, he persevered. Elijah observed the signs, and he believed as a result that he could do anything that God told him he could do.
Amen.
Like young David. David saw signs in his past to encourage him in his future. While the whole Israeli army was threatened by a bully, David, when faced with the greatest threat of his life, drew upon the encouragements of his past.
Yes, amen.
David said, wait a minute.
That's right. Yes.
I don't care how big he is, how ugly he is,
That's right.
how tough he is.
Amen.
God slew a lion and used my hands to do
That's
it.
right. Amen.
God tore a bear apart and used my hands to do it. And I was even younger a boy then than I am now.
That's right. Amen.
If the Lord can do those things for me, this Philistine has no chance. Friends, we need to tackle, confront the issues of our life with that kind of a mentality.
Amen.
My God is able.
Yes.
And we need to draw upon the victories of our past and try to get over the issues of your present.
Yes. Amen.
Good things have happened to you in your life to get you to the next level, not to leave you where you are.